Hey there, sports fans. Today's project is going to be changing the oil and installing a Fumoto valve at the oil drain plug. This makes it exceptionally easy to then change the oil in the future. So we're going to go through that process, how I do it kind of quick and easy, utilizing these ramps instead of actually using a jack and jack stands. The other thing that I like to do especially on engines with high mileage, is to run it for just a couple minutes with this seafoam, maybe even 50-60 miles before you're going to change the oil. This will help to break up a lot of the gum and junk that's in the engine, again, especially at that high mileage. And then even if it thins out the gas, maybe, or excuse me, the oil a little bit too much, then at least you're changing it fairly quickly. But I don't know if there's no proven science behind my method here, but this is what I've decided to do. I really like seafoam. You can use it for either gas or oil. They are not sponsoring this video, but by all means, seafoam, if you guys are watching this, feel free to reach out to me. I will say, quite frankly, that in the future, I will probably buy the mystery oil because it seems that it is the exact same stuff, and the mystery oil is a little bit cheaper per ounce. And I'm always looking for ways to save money. So we'll get started on the oil change and go from there. Okay, when you go to install these, and anytime you thread any assembly, you should really try to go backwards as if you were trying to take it off. Wait to hear and feel that click of the threads seating on each other, and then start tightening. On these Fumoto valves, you should never use this hex portion of the right next to that close nipple. And instead use the body. So what I tend to do when I'm installing these is to use a crescent wrench to then get around that body. So like this. So we'll clean off our oil pan drain bolt. And like I said, come backwards just a little bit. Make sure that those threads seat, and then screw most of it on by hand so that you know you're not cross-threading and creating more problems for yourself. Good. And then we'll snug that up with the crescent wrench. And of course, you never want to over tighten, but you also never want to under tighten. And then, as you can see, so this is closed with the valve facing towards the camera. And it's spring loaded so that even normal engine vibrations shouldn't allow this to open on its own. But to open it, you flick up and bring it so that it's running parallel. And as you can see, some of that old oil is still dripping out. So I'm going to let that keep doing its thing while I replace the oil filter. And then we'll come back to it, make sure that this is closed off. And we'll use the clip that we bought to go with it. And that further assures that this valve does not open just going down the road. Okay, and then this is the oil filter wrench that I use. I don't know if you can see that very well with the shadows, but these teeth clamp in on the oil filter housing and make for a real easy removal. So I just kind of get it started with that. There goes Buddy. And then the rest by hand here. Not a huge fan of Fran, but I'm not the one who put this on there. Okay, so here is that clip that I was talking about. Just kind of slides on there with a portion of that black plastic piece around both sides of the valve again, so it doesn't allow it to move. This is just a vinyl vacuum cap that I sort of cut to fit to just close up over that nipple. It's not going to hold any oil in place. Obviously that's what the valve is doing. I just like it because it makes for a clean process. I'm a little bit on the OCD side. That way no road debris will get up in there. I mean, the oil's going to flush it out anyway, but this is just something that I do for a clean look when I install them. So every time you go to put on a new oil filter, take a dab of brand new oil and run it around the rim of the rubber gasket seal on the new one. That just helps to ensure that it will seal properly. And then you clean off your engine oil filter surface. Make sure that's all ready to go except the new filter. Clean, clean, clean. Same thing, reverse thread just a little bit. Wait for that and feel that click. And then thread it on. And this should only be tightened by hand. Don't use your oil filter wrench that you use to remove it. Don't use that to tighten it. Just by hand, nice and snug. Clean up the surrounding area so that when you go to run the engine later, you don't get that burnt oil smell. It's awful. And oil has much more of an affinity to burn than gas does, believe it or not. Gas evaporates usually before any type of engine fire might start, whereas oil really likes to burn and stay burning. Okay, so we've replaced the oil drain pan bolt with a Fumoto valve. So again, in the future, instead of having to dig out the wrenches and the correct socket, all we need to do is push up that valve, flick it over, and you're draining oil. There's no real cleanup afterwards other than just quickly wiping the edge of that nipple and putting our little cover back on. That's it. It makes it really easy. The longest portion is always going to be changing your oil filter, but it takes it down from like a 15-minute process to maybe a 10-minute process. You're not having to replace the crush washer on that bolt each time as well, so you're saving kind of time and money. So, and then we also replaced the oil filter. Now the last thing that we have to do is just fill the car up with oil. As you remember from the beginning, it drove it out onto the Rhino ramps. Because this is not level and we're not going to get an accurate reading, what I generally do, and again there's no science behind this, but I fill it up a half a quart below what I know that the engine will take, and so this is just under 4 quarts, like 3.98. Then I'll fill it up to about 3.5 quarts, run the car, get it off of the ramps, and then recheck it once it's level. And of course, after waiting at least 5 minutes, preferably more like 10, to let all the oil kind of trickle down and drain down into the oil pan, and then we'll get our reading and top it off from there. If I'm using conventional oil, I am a huge fan of Castrol GTX, and quite honestly it's because my papa is a big fan of Castrol GTX back when he was still pretty heavy working on his hot rod and everything. That's what he noticed left the least amount of residue or no residue on his brand new engine. And but since I'm going synthetic on this car because it's high mileage, I'm going to go with the makers of synthetic, which is Mobil 1. I think these guys probably have the best synthetic oil. So we'll use that. This is a full 5-quart container, so we'll drop it down until there's only 1.5 quarts left. Getting pretty close. Okay, let's get this car down off of the ramps. I'll wait just a little bit for that engine oil to circulate. Also just kind of double check myself, look for any leaks down below. We're looking pretty good, we'll get it down. Okay, now we'll just clean up everything except for the oil left to top off the engine, and we're done.